I keep seeing people saying that the countersuit Baldoni filed changes everything. Lively is cooked. Her claims have been entirely refuted. People who would have heard her out are back on Justin's side yet again. So I looked to see if I could find the filing, and admittedly all I could find was a pretty simple and objective breakdown, as much as I would have loved to have gone through more, but I just wanted to know what are the points being brought up that everyone says change everything. So I kept track of the biggest points presented in his favor, and at the end of the day, it all means nothing. Now, if you like Baldoni or you support him, please hear me out. I know a thing or two about media production, and the thing is, a lot of what I saw relies on the public not knowing a lot about what goes on behind the scenes. Also, again, sorry if you can hear stuff going on in the background, my dogs and cats are in here with me. However, if you have the information about the industry that you need, his claims are really just unnecessary. The funny thing is, I actually was stuck in a very similar situation in a film class that I was in. It was a much smaller scale, obviously, but it was a very similar position technically to Baldoni in what he's describing. And yet, that experience has actually led me to doubt him more. So let's first go over the big claims I saw, what they mean, and then I'll tell that story. Quote, she took over the film. She was a producer. Producers can be active, very active, or hardly involved and just kind of throw money at the project. Now, when I was going through the timeline of everything and the biggest points, I was like, okay, this is a little strange that they just keep on citing things about basically she was just being more involved than they wanted her to be, which, yeah, that can happen, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything's criminal here. So a quote from that was, quote here, Baldoni cites texts from Lively requesting access to dailies, raw footage from shooting, which the suit calls an, quote, inappropriate and unorthodox request, end quote for the whole thing from the article there. Now, none of this is unreasonable if she was feeling victimized on set. If anything, him confirming that they had to do these things proves that there was some kind of issue, so it's all about motivation. He has essentially said that he didn't like her taking some more power and autonomy over the film. He didn't dispute why she was trying to take that power and autonomy in the first place, though. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a very specific way a film production is supposed to run, but you can be flexible with things if you need to. Showing dailies isn't actually that big of a thing. Yeah, it's usually something that's, contained to just like the director and whatnot, but it's not that big of an issue. You can show it to a producer if need be. So for them to say that it's inappropriate is way out of line. Unorthodox, yeah, but inappropriate, no, because it just depends on the situation. You can be flexible with these things if you need to be. What you can't be flexible about is, the rules and regulations put to keep things safe. Like, that's where a lot of people try to have some wiggle room where you really can't. But for showing dailies, that's not, again, unorthodox, yes, inappropriate, no. He said that she wanted to have a final cut of the film, which is something that, if I remember correctly, was already put out there, that Lively had said she wanted to as a part of that whole meeting they had trying to go over will things, change for the safer, essentially. All of these things, having a say in the editing, having access to a final cut of the film, seeing dailies, they're already things that Lively has addressed. Now, she didn't necessarily go out of her way to talk about them, but they were addressed in that meeting and in that paper that got out to the public. So it is stuff that she has essentially already confirmed on her end. So what he is essentially saying is that he didn't like it. But we don't have a reason to say that the cause of why she was asking for those things isn't what she alleged. He's just confirming that the things that were already confirmed to have happened. So why did they, though? That's the concern here, and that's what I'm not seeing addressed. Another thing was that it was brought up that there was a meeting between Baldoni and it was Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and the context clues suggest Taylor Swift, where there was a meeting where they all met to discuss the rewrite of a rooftop scene. And he said that he was intimidated by Reynolds and this friend that's supposedly Taylor Swift, and that he would have loved the scene if she pitched it to him without them there anyway. So he is saying she brought them there to intimidate him. But the thing is, why were they there? He said intimidation, but that, just basically is like, okay, leaving us to say, oh, she must have been a mean girl. She was trying to boss him around and do stuff, trying to make him feel like he can't speak up for himself. However, it can very easily be seen as her needing support. Why would you bring your best friend and your husband to a meeting if this is someone that you either want to bully or someone that you have been mistreated by? Well, she would not want to be intimidated by Baldoni, so she needed support. So at the end of the day, there's no rebuttal here. All it's saying is that he was intimidated, but, him being intimidated means nothing. He could literally be intimidated because he has people standing up to him because he knows what he did was wrong. So being intimidated means nothing in his favor. Yeah, sure, maybe he was completely innocent and felt intimidated. This still means nothing. It just means he didn't like having more people there. That's all. Now, he also said in the suit here that there was allegedly an intimacy coordinator that was hired for the first half of the film and Lively refused to meet with them. So it is not on him that there wasn't a safety coordinator for parts of filming, so she is trying to spin that as a narrative against him. So we have to ask ourselves, where's the proof? Why was it only the first half of filming? Odds are they didn't only need an intimacy coordinator for the first half of filming, especially because there was that break and then that meeting with Lively where they went over all of her requirements to change to make things safer going forward, which wouldn't have made sense if they weren't going to need a safety coordinator going forward. So why would she ask for one if there was already one, and why would she ask for one if it was only needed for the stuff they had already covered and wasn't needed for anything going forward? So who was this intimacy coordinator? That also matters, because if it's someone who isn't doing their job in full, who is part of the problem, or someone who isn't organized and professional and isn't keeping things safe, of course you wouldn't want to work with them. Of course, at that point, you basically don't have an intimacy coordinator. You have to provide the full truth for this to mean anything. So if he can't prove that he was constantly trying to have an intimacy coordinator on set and Lively kept firing them, it means nothing. Because at the end of the day, you still needed an intimacy coordinator the whole time. And if this is his, big project, if he's director, if he's producer, if he's, anything in the higher up position, and that's what he's claiming, was saying that this was his movie that Lively was taking over, then he needed to make sure there was an intimacy coordinator at all times. It is not enough to just have them for the first half of the film. So essentially with this, he's tattled on himself in the production. You needed an intimacy coordinator for the whole thing, and you're telling us you only got one for the first half, and when they didn't work out for whatever reason, you just didn't get another intimacy coordinator? Okay, that's not how that works. When there's a job that needs to be filled and one person gets fired from it, you get another person. That's what you do. Okay, sorry, getting a little heated here. Safety is important for me, okay? So I know that everything I'm saying may seem a little hypocritical for me to be really digging into Baldoni about this, but not to be saying the same things about Lively. But there is a reason for that. Now, I don't follow the motto, believe all women, but I do believe in taking all claims of victimhood seriously. Yes, be critical and examine those claims thoroughly. Be prepared to accept some claims are false and twisted, but stop and investigate right away. If the claims she has made are even partly true, that is a serious issue. Now, like I said, I take production safety very seriously. I was in film school for 2020, and for the Rust incident, I had to take full classes on set safety. You could get expelled if you didn't follow safety protocols, and this was all for a very good reason. Now, you can joke that every issue in the entertainment world is simply just Hollywood brats at their finest, but you should never ignore or belittle workplace safety. A crime is still a crime no matter who it happens to. Of course, we need to make sure that this is addressed before anyone is allowed to move on. That's why people can be held in prison until their trial. You wouldn't let a Ted Bundy type roam free after you found evidence of what they had done and just hope their behavior changes until the trial. You stop, investigate, and then convict on the evidence. But it's important to stop. The claims of what happened need to be investigated seriously so that if they are true, the cycle doesn't continue while people are arguing online about if they think this should be taken seriously because they think Lively has a rude sense of humor. One last thing before I tell you the story of the time I was in a situation like Baldoni and how that makes me distrust him. I was reading up on the lawsuit, and there was one sentence that was cited that really stood out to me. So here it is, exactly as it was written in the article I read. Quote, Blake Lively, if she was sexually harassed to such a degree in this film and in this situation, she wouldn't have returned to the film, Friedman told Kelly, end quote. This is disgusting and provably a false narrative. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole people stay in bad relationships thing or anything like that. No, I'm going to tell you about a known phenomenon in the film industry that happens with actors that is so prevalent that my professor for the media production safety class took almost a whole 3-hour class to talk about it. So yeah, any professional in the industry should know about this. Actors feel a pressure to do whatever job is required of them. If you say you won't do something, then you may lose the job to someone who is willing to do it. Why is that a problem, you may ask? Isn't that fair? Well, only partly. The thing is, it is known to lead to extortion, be it intentional or not. That is why we have basic safety protocols. We have put them in place to draw a line. You follow these protocols, you know where the line is, and you force yourself not to cross it. If you don't follow these protocols, where is that line? How do you know you aren't crossing it? My professor told us that some actors will genuinely be fine doing just about anything for an intimate scene. Like, they'll go well beyond the basic safety regulations. However, you shouldn't ask them to do anything you want. See, if we were casting for a movie with an intimate scene, we need to have a plan up front and tell everyone, say, we want to do full frontal, if you know what that means, but YouTube probably doesn't want me to say it. If you have 2 actors we are considering for the role, and they both say they'll do it, we can't know for sure that one or both of them weren't pushing themselves to say yes just to get the job. So we need to set up protocols to make sure that everyone can safely voice their concerns. But will they? Maybe not. Actors, especially actors who don't have a lot of weight to their name, don't want to be labeled as difficult in case word gets around and they don't get more work. You may be tempted to say then, they signed up for it, so they should have to do it without complaint, or else it's difficult for production. Doesn't matter. Yes, it is best for the actor to express these concerns up front, but that can only be done once all the barriers stopping them from doing so have been taken out of the equation, and you can't always take them entirely out of the equation. So we have to make sure that the set is as safe as possible for these scenes so that even if they are pushing themselves and we don't know about it, they won't be taken advantage of. You are in a position of power over someone as a director, as a producer, in any of those higher up positions. You have to make sure you are keeping yourself in check. You are not the one having to actually go and act out these scenes, but you are in power over the people who are. And that means you have to be careful. Now, a lot of people in this field will tell you that filming an S scene is the least SE thing you could possibly do. And that should 100% be true. It should be technical. You should have robes for the actors so they can keep, those robes on until the very last second and put them on immediately afterwards. Closed sets are a must. Minimizing exposure is a must. Choreography is a must. All of this is standard for a reason. So you may be thinking that I specified actors without weight to their name are especially susceptible to this. So does that mean anything for Lively? And the answer is yes. We were also warned that this phenomenon happens with experienced actors as well. They may not be as susceptible for the same reasons, but they are still at risk nonetheless. They may feel they have to be willing to do this as a professional. They may feel pressure to not let everyone down. They may be financially invested in getting the project done, like, say, if they are a producer. This happens, unfortunately. Sometimes you don't mean for it to happen, but not everyone is that nice. Now, I will say that pretty much every industry professional that I've ever met, that I've ever, had come and speak in a class or anything like that, where, the number one thing is always, hey, can you give advice for new people in the industry or people who are wanting to break into the industry? The repeated bit of advice is always to be good, honest, reliable, and decent. I was warned by so many people who have, years and years and years and years of experience in the entertainment industry. Like, a lot of these people had been working there longer than I'd even been alive, and some people had only been in there for a few years. Some were working, like, I'm not going to specify, too many details on people, but I literally had people who, worked on WandaVision and Loki and stuff, like big projects, who were telling us that the entertainment industry is literally just like every other industry in that a lot of people are just normal people who are trying to do a job they love. They don't want brats, and they don't like brats. The reason Hollywood gets such a reputation for being filled with bad people is because, one, the fun drama that creates in the tabloids, because let's be honest, you aren't going to read or remember a story about two coworkers being nice to each other when you can complain about the Kardashians being snooty again. And two, because the bad people who do get in tend to be able to do a lot of damage before they get pushed out. So we were born to be competitive, but don't make a fool of ourselves by trying to step on others to get ahead. Honestly, anytime there were every once in a while, not commonly, but every once in a while in a film school class, there would be just one or two students that would always be trying to play that classic Hollywood villain type role of, oh, I need to, put everyone down to get ahead. I need to, steal everyone else's ideas and take them as my own. And I need to be bossy, and I need to, cuss people out when they don't do what I want. And oh my goodness, most of the professors clocked that immediately. And anytime that whole okay, you actually have to be a good person because most of the people in Hollywood in the entertainment industry are good people, they would give them the side eye. Anyways, it is honestly way more likely that an actor will stay in a production where they are being mistreated than to leave because of how much is at stake if they do. So really, if anything, Lively leaving the project would have supported the she's a brat narrative that's been going on. But her staying really doesn't make anything seem like, oh, it couldn't have been that she was being hurt. It does actually, oddly enough, support the idea that she could have been being hurt. Alright, so now onto my story. I was in a class that was, ironically, about creative collaborations. We had to do a short film project based on just a theme that we were given. We were given 5 themes, and then everyone had to sort themselves into groups of people who wanted to do those themes. So several students, myself included, chose this one theme that I don't even remember what it is anymore, but we were assigned to be a group together because there were barely enough of us there to make a group. For the more popular themes, people broke into groups depending on who they thought they'd get along with, but again, for us, we just the only thing we had in common was we chose that theme. So you can see why we were the problem group. One of the first assignments was to assign roles to everyone, who would produce, write, direct, that kind of thing. Now, I was a directing student, so I said I'd like to direct if no one else wanted to. And I remember specifically checking in with everyone and being open and saying hey, if you want to direct, by all means, you can direct, we could co-direct, I'm totally open to all of that. And everyone just casually said they weren't interested, so I could go ahead. Now, there's this one guy, and we'll call him Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse just waited around until there was only one job left, so he ended up being our cinematographer. So I ended up helping the producers with some of the stuff that they were working on because we were all having to learn about producing together. So we'll call our 2 producers here Daisy Duck and Minnie Mouse, no relation to Mickey Mouse. It was an assignment that we had to turn in to the professor, where we had to book a location and set a date and filming time. We ended up setting our filming time for over a month out from that assignment, and that's going to be really important here in a minute. So the writer got the script to us, so Daisy, Minnie, and I, we could go ahead and get everything organized for filming. The one thing we needed that wasn't our job was a shot list. This was important for me and Mickey to collaborate, and we also just needed it to schedule filming. You can't figure out what you're going to film if you don't know what you're filming. So we had to figure out, okay, if we have, this shot, we'll film it in this order and stuff, but we didn't have the shot list. So we kept telling him that we were ready for that list anytime after the script was finished. We had to hand in the script to the professor, who did a risk assessment and told us we had to go in for a safety meeting, and, someone was supposed to trip in the story, so we had to make a plan with the professor for how to safely film that. Now, Daisy Duck and I went to the meeting, but Mickey Mouse was absent. She asked me afterwards, where was he? And I told her, hey, I have no idea, but I'll tell him the plan we came up with how to use camera tricks to make sure no one actually has to fall during filming. Now, Mickey still didn't respond much to that, nor did he finish making the shot list around this information. So essentially there were a few shots that were made for him because that was what me and the professor had decided would work best safety-wise, and that was all we had. Once we had only about 3 weeks or so until filming, I started asking him to meet up with me in person so we could make the shot list together. I figured he was probably just nervous about doing it, he wasn't super familiar with the process, so maybe figuring it out with someone else would help. So he kept blowing me off when I tried to arrange to meet with him. And I finally just told him he could make the list and then we could just have a phone call to go over it when he was done. Because at this point, filming was going to happen the day we got back from break, and I already had plans with family that meant I'd be off campus until I came back from break. So he said, hey, that sounds good. And he said, I'll get it to you either tonight or tomorrow. Well, that night and the next day went and nothing. I asked again. He said the same thing, I'll get it to you tonight or tomorrow. And it got to the point where I was literally texting him at the family event saying, we don't have to do the phone call, you can just send me the list tonight and we'll just run with it. And he said, yeah, that works. It wasn't until 2 hours before filming was supposed to start that he sent me the shot list, which meant I only had 1 hour to read it, make a schedule, and get myself ready and out the door. It didn't matter that it wasn't my job as a director to make the schedule. I was the only one he sent the list to and the only one who could make a schedule in time. So I was literally carrying my laptop around the dorm and putting my shoes on and brushing my teeth and stuff with one hand while using the other to try and arrange things on a schedule on my computer, and it was very chaotic. So essentially, I got to read the list twice before having to go to set, which is literally just reading it once very, very quickly, and then literally just being like, okay, we could put this right after this one, we can film this one with this one and whatever, and then that was it. So, needless to say, no one else but Mickey Mouse felt organized and ready to go when we got on set. Me and Daisy and Minnie were all trying to just keep things from falling apart, so he said that I wasn't involved enough that first day, and I didn't give any artistic help. He blamed me for being a bad director because I didn't seem to know what we were filming. So the next day we were filming some more, and things went awry as they always do, and long story short, I had to literally sit down, rewrite the script, the shot list, and schedule in 10 minutes while we were on set. And he was eating cookies while I was working on this. So I ended up doing part of the job of the writer, some producing work, and then because we were short on time, I picked up a camera myself. I said I'd leave the shots he had a clear vision for and he was really excited to film. I'd leave those for him, but I'd film everything else as needed. When we were nearing the end of that filming day, I made a plan on how we could wrap up and finish everything on time. When I tried to tell him, he started walking off. I restarted my sentence literally every single time he broke eye contact with me. He would literally just be trying to walk away as I was trying to explain the plan to him, and I would just and I would restart my sentence, and he just finally stared at me like I had two heads. But I was like, okay, you know what, you're gonna keep eye contact with me while I say this, because I figured that was the only way to get him to listen. So I told him to finish the shot he was about to set up, that I was taking X equipment to this part of the building with this actor to walk out this shot, and as soon as he was done with his shot, he was to come over and do the formal filming for this other shot I was blocking out, because this was one that he was kind of excited about. So I work with the actor, no one comes over to the building, to that part of the building, so I figure there must be a problem in the other section. So I decided to just film the shot with the actor and we'll go back to the main hub, we'll fix whatever problem there is, and hopefully we can finish filming and wrap on time here. And as soon as we walk in, Mickey Mouse asks us, "Where were you guys?" through yet another mouthful of the cookies. So I told him I was filming the shot like I said I was going to, and he acted like this was the first time he was hearing about it. We ended up having to film an extra day, but I wasn't able to make it that time, so Daisy Duck took a whole bunch of notes from me on what to do because she was going to be the stand-in director. So what did she tell me after filming? That Mickey Mouse refused to listen to her. He kept walking off and doing his own thing and was pulling away the rest of the cast and crew from her and getting to them to do what he was saying instead of her, who was the official stand-in director. So we then found out later that he asked the editor to put him in as director for the project in the credits. Me and Daisy both said no, that he shouldn't get the extra credit because everyone ended up helping each other out, but no one was getting credit for, cinematography for helping him, so why should he be getting the credit when no one else was? Now, we ended up also having to explain after they were like, oh, but he was just doing so much to help and whatnot, that we ended up, having to say like, okay, he actually made the job of directing that much harder for the two of us who were actually in that position. So it honestly just felt really rude for him to be taking more credit than he deserved, So we had to do a summary of our experience with the teacher at the very end of the class. And he ended up taking that time to say, we were bullying him. He said that we blamed him for not getting the shot list done on time and that made our jobs harder, but we didn't even set a filming date until 3 days before filming. The teacher was immediately skeptical because, if you'll remember, It was a graded assignment for everyone to have a locked-in filming date and location. So she knew that we had all scheduled over a month in advance. So he kept complaining about me and Daisy and even a little bit about Minnie because we just didn't want to let him have a say in the project. Again, we were asking him repeatedly to do his part of the project. So the professor came up to me after class and asked how things really went. I had actually been asking her for advice throughout this whole thing, so I was like, I don't know what to do. And so she knew the whole time what was going on, and Mickey Mouse just had no idea that she had already been in the know. But anyway, I told her, and she said that usually people act like that when either they are immature or don't like women being in charge. And I'll give the guy some slack and say he was probably just immature, but I guess I'll probably never really know the true motivations for sure. And in truth, I don't need to know the motivations to understand the experience. It's genuinely frustrating to be a director or producer or really anything and have someone step on your toes. For them to say that Lively was asking for producing credits that they didn't like because they were the more advanced producing credits and they didn't feel she deserved that, that can be a real feeling. You can absolutely feel like someone else is trying to take your movie. However, it isn't something that belongs to any one person. That's why so many of us were okay with collaborating and helping with each other's jobs. We communicated throughout and let each other know what was going on. That's the problem we had with Mickey Mouse. He didn't do those things. But I will also say, I, as the director for a project, didn't do everything right. I got more comfortable with being a leader as the project went along, but I didn't start that way. So I did receive very valid feedback from the others, and if I was doing something exceedingly wrong, like not keeping the set safe, then it would have been perfectly reasonable for other people to call me out on it. So if Baldoni was hurt by Lively stepping on his toes, and if it wasn't for the reasons she gave, then I get it. But that doesn't excuse anything he may have done wrong. Believe me, I wanted to ignore my shortcomings and say the only reason I was a bad director was because of Mickey Mouse's actions. Now, they didn't help, and that caused issues for me in the production even as I improved, but I still didn't do things perfectly. And, Mickey Mouse, he wasn't innocent just because he claimed we hurt his feelings. And, hey, we were all in school. We were all learning. And so that's bound to happen in a school setting, but, in the professional setting, this should be handled a little bit better. Also, I just want to say this, hurting someone's feelings, it isn't illegal. Violating someone's personal boundaries, if you understand what that means, that is illegal. The whole thing feeds into the narrative that's already out there that Lively is a mean girl, but that doesn't actually change the likelihood of what happened, nor does it change the severity of it if that is in fact what happened. Now, you can claim it's an industry taboo to do some of the things that he claimed she did, but nothing that I have seen that, he's put out there with the lawsuit from, at least, again, what I've seen. Maybe there's something out there that I just completely missed, but nothing seems to be showing that everything was completely fake. He says she was smearing him now to make up for her mean girl reputation, but doesn't make sense that they would have had a big meeting outlining what safety changes needed to be made well before any of this, and that she could get seemingly everyone on her side in terms of the other actors and stuff on the project. Doesn't make sense that they would all feel uncomfortable around him? Or does it make more sense that him saying, she made me feel bad, and I swear if she faked the evidence that has come out after, is the person in the wrong trying to hide their wrongdoing? The go-to for getting a better reputation is donating to charity. Even if you claim fake victimhood, you usually also donate to charity. He has basically just presented a reinterpretation of some of the facts and claimed that the other ones have been false. My experience of people doing this is that they're usually trying to hide something that just got out. Overall, the question isn't if Baldoni's feelings were hurt, if Lively is a diva, or if you don't like Hollywood brats at their finest. You should take these claims seriously until it can be proven without any doubt at all that these workplace safety issues did not happen. That doesn't necessarily mean going crazy and punishing everyone, but stop and find the truth before anyone else could potentially be hurt. At the end of the day, that is exactly why this needs to be taken seriously. If you don't like Lively but her allegations are true, what's to stop the same thing from happening to someone you do like? If you ever become an actor, or you are one now, would you be okay with that happening to you just because no one wanted to take it seriously because I don't like her, so I'm fine with it? Until basically all footage and witnesses can be combed through by multiple third parties who have an understanding of media production, we probably won't have an answer. And that may be something that happens in court, which is why there are lawyers who specialize in cases in the entertainment industry. They would have to go through all of the evidence and witnesses with all of the jury members and explain to them what happens with media production and get everyone to look through everything to see what is the truth. So don't dismiss this as gossip. Don't dismiss it because you don't like someone. And don't go on a witch hunt either. Just support the need to know that this company, this place of work, is not enabling crimes to happen under their nose. If you wouldn't accept it at a doctor's office, your local McDonald's, a school, then don't accept it at a production studio. It is still a professional place of work. It is specialized, but it is not alien. Keep the companies and the people who run them accountable. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you hearing my thoughts on this. Now, I'm aware that there's probably information out there that I missed, so if there's anything that directly, refutes anything that I said here, please let me know in the comments. Please also just let me know your thoughts and opinions. If you would like to check out another video of mine, like, subscribe, please feel free to do that, and have a good day.